يعني اليوم احنا زي ما انت شايف في الصقيع وفي الشتاء في الرياح، احنا ما بنستنى اليوم، ما بنستنى كابوني ولا بنستنى مواد غذائية، احنا بنستنى منهم مأوى.
Gaza is on the brink of becoming the first territory in the world to be intentionally reduced to a state of abject destitution. This is not an accident or the result of natural disaster. It is a matter of policy. Israel's blockade seals off the territory by land, air and sea, imprisoning 1.5 million people. The blockade means the delay or denial of fuel, commercial goods, and even, as Gaza becomes more dependent, humanitarian aid.
The siege on Gaza has been in place now for over 2.5 years. Essentially, the siege restricts all items coming into Gaza. The situation at the moment is unbearable. Physically, the place is a complete mess. In terms of the infrastructure, there's no economy. 80% of the population are depending on handouts of food. The medical facilities are under massive strain. The water and sanitation situation is deplorable, and so on. Very devastating on their mindsets and their mentality.
الحياة طبعا زي ما انتم شايفين يعني حياة صعبة جدا. يعني بالليل احنا والحيوانات سوا. يعني المناطق هذه اللي انت شايفها كل هذه كانت مناطق زراعية وكل الحيوانات تعيش فيها. اليوم علشان خلا فاضية كل الحيوانات بتتجمع عندنا هنا بالليل.
بعد الحرب يعني ومشكلة عندنا في تسكير المعابر والحصار اللي قطع فيه. الغاز مش موجود حاليا يعني دائما باستمرار. يعني عندي الجرة هذه لها أكثر من 3 أشهر فاضية. مشكلتنا برضو في الكهرباء وفي المية. انت بتكون في كهرباء الواحد بيستعمل كهرباء للخبز وللطبيخ. فيش كهرباء بضطر ادور على حطب واشعل واخبز.
The blockade affects all aspects of daily life, from cooking gas to school books to electricity. Hospitals are not exempt. Medicines are routinely delayed, and supplies like spare parts for dialysis machines and incubators are often denied, leaving Gaza's hospitals less able to cope and putting patients at risk.
When the medication is delayed, we can use it. It's useless. One of the most important things we're facing here in Gaza for the hemodialysis. When we don't get the hemodialysis powder or hemodialysis fluids in the proper time, we can see the people go to die.
Beyond hospitals, a public health disaster looms. Because of the ban on imports of spare parts for maintenance or repair, water and sewage treatment facilities cannot function.
They minimize, decrease the list of allowed materials, electromechanical spare parts, pipes, pumps, generators, etc. Now this really decreases our capability to keep providing water supplies, services, and collect and treat the wastewater. In summary, I'm talking about around 40,000 cubic meters of raw sewage to the sea, and the other 40,000 are semi-treated.
The sea is the only place that remained for Gaza citizens to have some fun and to go for recreation. Unfortunately, this is also problematic, and people couldn't allow their kids to go and swim in many areas. The effect will be skin diseases or gastrointestinal diseases or inflammation in the eye or in the ear.
Now, the impact could have been worth if I leave everything and land, not dump to the sea. But I know that now I'm polluting the marine life, which is an important resource for our economy, for fisher, for the season of swimming, etc.
بسبب القصف والدمار الموجود علينا اختلفت السنوات الانتاج السنوي من السمك.
فقلصوا لمدة 6 ميل، صاروا 3 ميل، قلصوا اليد الشمالي، قلصوا اليد الجنوبي من غزة، يعني خلوها ككونتيل، يعني حصار على الصيادين هذول الناس الغلابة. في عندهم طرادات، احنا ما عندناش الا لحمنا، طبعا هو بيجي بطخ صار انت بتبشر غزلك او اشراكك وبتروح.
بيجي بيطلق عليهم النار، تيجي مثلا رصاصين بتيجي هان يعني اصبح انه كمان مراكبنا كمان مش امينه علينا، وهذا يعني بحقوق الانسان هذا غلط.
Israel's offensive caused vast devastation across Gaza, and the situation is desperate. Over 6,000 houses were destroyed, and with no building materials allowed in, thousands of families are still displaced, living in tents or the rubble of their former homes. Despite the $4 billion pledged by the international community for reconstruction, the blockade has meant that little of that has been spent. With the winter rains and winds, this is leaving thousands at risk.
يعني والله انت شايف زي ما انتوا جيتوا هنا وشفتوا بعينكم يعني الواحد يعني عايش في خيمة، عايش في نايلون كله يعني والله تغيرت كل الحياة. يعني الواحد بطل يعني يكون زي أول، يعني الواحد كان أول متريح، يعني بيضمن إنه في حاجة عنده بروّل، بيضمن حاجة أولاده مستورين، أولاده ما يلعبوا في الشارع، ما يتعوروا من حديدة من حاجة. في مساعدات أجلنا، بس يعني المساعدات إيش بدها تكفيك؟ تسد عن دارك ما بتسد، يعني مهما يعطوك مساعدات أو فيش مواد بنا أو فيش حاجة على الفاضي يعني.
وعيلة يعني 7 أنفار، إيش منين بدنا نجيب لهم نسوي؟ المية صعبة والله المية صعبة يعني. كيف تجيبوا المية؟ مية مالحة، والمية هذيك بنجيبها يعني مرار من جيراننا ومرار نشتريها شرية والله.
90% is contaminated by high level of nitrates and high level of chloride. So 90% of Gaza water is not drinkable.
Since June 2007, we're getting in about 20% of what we were getting in before. 85% of the population in Gaza are now depending on handouts of food from the United Nations. At UNRWA, we are feeding over 800,000 refugees out of a 1 million population, and the World Food Programme are feeding 80% of the non-refugees here in Gaza. The handout of food that we're giving to them is just 5 basic food items: rice, sugar, oil, lentils, and flour, and that's it. That's what you get, and you have to live on that. It's what we call an emergency ration. It's supposed to keep you going for a couple of weeks, a couple of months at the most, in a humanitarian crisis.
اسم رحاب عبد الكريم الأشقر. أبويا مشلول ويعني عدة أمراض فيه، معاه ضغط ومعاه سكري ومعاه فشل كلوي، وقدمنا للمؤن قبل هيك ما طلعش لأبويا يعني أي حاجة، فيش إلا غير تطلع له غير كابونة واحدة كيس طحين كل 2-3 كيس طحين اللي بطلع له إياه بس هو.
People have been living on this meager handout for years. This is the 9th year of our emergency ration program, and all that's happening is the queues are getting longer.
And as Gaza's population becomes increasingly dependent on international assistance, that aid is also being delayed and denied.
When we tried to bring in medical equipment, it has been delayed and then returned back because of bureaucracy.
There has been no effective action to lift this siege on Gaza for 2.5 years. It's illegal under international law. So when the people of Gaza look for help, they look beyond just the 2 parties to this conflict. They look to the third party, which is the international community, which has adopted on its own shoulders responsibility to act, to uphold and enforce and implement international law. And they are calling on, and they are right to call on, the international community to move beyond words of sympathy and empathy with the people, to move into effective action to actually get the international law that they are responsible for upholding implemented here. This just cannot go on.